Parents ignored me for years, then suddenly showed up when they needed money. You ever realize that your own family doesn't actually give a damn about you? Not in an, oh, we had a misunderstanding kind of way, but in a, they actually just don't care way. Yeah, that was my childhood. For as long as I can remember, my parents had a favorite. My younger brother. He was the golden child, the perfect one, the one who could do no wrong. And me? I was just there. An afterthought. The extra kid they had to deal with. At first, I thought maybe I was just imagining it. Kids get jealous, right? Siblings fight for attention. But as I got older, I realized it wasn't in my head. It was real. Birthdays? Barely acknowledged. Meanwhile, my brother got big celebrations, complete with decorations, presents, and a house full of guests. I'd get a half-hearted, oh yeah, happy birthday if they even remembered. School achievements? Ignored. I once won a major academic award, and my mom's response was, "That's nice, but your brother has a soccer game this weekend." I wasn't abused. There were no screaming fights, no harsh words, just silence, neglect. A slow, sinking feeling that I didn't matter to them at all. By the time I turned 18, I got the message loud and clear. I was on my own. So, I left. No dramatic goodbye, no one begging me to stay. Just me, packing up my things and walking out the door. And they didn't care. No calls, no texts, no, "Hey, how are you doing?" They just erased me from their lives like I had never even existed. Fine. If that's how they wanted it, I wasn't going to beg. I worked my ass off, put myself through college, and built a life without them. It wasn't easy, but I made it. Got a decent job, an apartment, some good friends who actually gave a damn about me. And honestly, I didn't think about my parents much anymore. Then, out of nowhere, after years of silence, I got a message from my mom. "Hey, sweetie, how have you been? We've missed you so much. We should get together and catch up. By the way, could we borrow some money? We're in a bit of a tough spot right now." I just stared at my phone. Oh, so now they remember I exist. I can't say I was surprised when my parents reached out after years of ignoring me. If anything, I was surprised it took them this long. Growing up, it was painfully obvious that I wasn't the favorite. My younger brother, Eric, was their pride and joy. He could do no wrong. Meanwhile, I was just there. If Eric wanted something, he got it. New clothes, expensive toys, the latest gadgets. Me? I was lucky if they even noticed I needed new shoes. At first, I tried everything to get their attention. I worked hard in school, hoping they'd be proud of my grades. Nothing. I joined extracurricular activities, hoping they'd show up to a game or a recital. They never did. The one time my mom actually came to a school event, an awards ceremony where I was being recognized for academic excellence, she spent the entire time talking about how Eric had scored a goal in his last soccer match. That's when I stopped trying. By the time I turned 18, I knew where I stood. My parents barely acknowledged my high school graduation. There was no talk of helping me with college, no advice about my future, just an unspoken expectation that I'd figure it out on my own. So, I did. I left home as soon as I could. No dramatic fight, no heartfelt goodbye. Just me, packing my bags and disappearing from their lives. And you know what? They didn't care. Not a single phone call, no, "How are you doing?" No check-ins, nothing. It was like I had never even existed. Meanwhile, Eric? He was still living with them well into his mid-20s, jobless but still getting everything handed to him. My parents doted on him, funded his failed business attempts, and made excuse after excuse for why he never had to be responsible for anything. I struggled through college, working multiple jobs to stay afloat. There were nights I had to choose between eating and paying rent. But I did it. I built a life for myself, without them. Eventually, I landed a decent job, started saving money, and for the first time in my life, I felt stable. I didn't think about my parents much, not because I was angry, at least not consciously, but because they were just irrelevant. They had made it clear a long time ago that I wasn't a part of their world. Then, out of nowhere, I got the message. Mom. "Hey, sweetie. How have you been? We've missed you so much. We should get together and catch up. By the way, could we borrow some money? We're in a bit of a tough spot right now." I had to read it twice. Sweetie? We've missed you so much. I actually laughed. Years of nothing, years of silence, and now suddenly they missed me the moment they needed cash? I didn't reply right away. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I checked their social media. And, well, let's just say things weren't going well in their perfect little world. Eric had gotten himself into some serious trouble. Something about a failed business, unpaid loans, and a lawsuit. Meanwhile, my parents had been making vague Facebook posts about fake people, and family should always support each other. It didn't take a genius to put two and two together. They were broke. And now I was suddenly important. I thought about ignoring the message altogether, but no, I wanted to hear it from them. So, I responded. Me. Hey, it's been a while, what's going on? It took less than 2 minutes for my mom to reply. Mom, oh sweetie, I'm so happy to hear from you. We were just thinking about how much we miss you. We should get together soon. By the way, could you help us out financially, just for a little bit? There it was. No shame, no small talk, no real effort to reconnect. Just straight to the point. Money. Something inside me snapped. If they had reached out just to talk, to apologize, to acknowledge the years of silence, maybe I would have given them a chance. But this was just insulting. Me. That's funny. I don't remember you needing me when I was struggling to put myself through college. I don't remember you checking in when I was working 3 jobs to survive. But now that you need money, suddenly I'm sweetie again? Sorry, I can't help. For the first time in my life, I had the power in this relationship. I watched as the little typing bubble appeared, disappeared, and then reappeared again. Clearly, they hadn't expected me to call them out. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Mom, we're still your family. Families help each other. It's not fair for you to hold the past against us like this. I almost laughed out loud. Where was this family energy when I was struggling? Where was it when I was working 60-hour weeks just to afford rent? Now that they needed something, suddenly family meant something to them. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't just going to say no, I was going to make sure they regretted ever reaching out to me in the first place. I didn't respond to my mom's last message right away. I wanted to make them wait. Let them sit with the fact that I wasn't the same desperate, invisible kid they had ignored for years. But I wasn't just going to ignore them. I was going to make them feel what it was like to be discarded, to be treated like an afterthought. So I decided to play along. I sent a short, vague reply. Me. I don't know. Things are kind of tight for me too. How much are you asking for? Immediately my phone buzzed. Mom. Oh, sweetie, we wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate. Just something small. Maybe $5,000? I almost choked on my drink. $5,000? They really thought they could just waltz back into my life and demand that kind of money? I wanted to see just how far they'd go. Me. That's a lot. What happened? Mom responded instantly, this time with a long, guilt-trippy message about how times have been tough, and Eric made a few mistakes, but he's trying so hard. She went on and on about how family should support each other, how a little help could go a long way, and how they'd pay me back as soon as things got better. Yeah, right. I wasn't stupid. If I gave them a dime, I knew I'd never see it again. But I needed more information. So, I pretended to hesitate. Me. I don't know. Things are tight for me too. I worked really hard to save up what I have. That's when things got interesting. Mom's friendly tone suddenly shifted. Mom, we're not asking for a handout. We raised you. We took care of you. The least you could do is help us when we need it. Oh, now they wanted credit for raising me? The same parents who never supported me, never helped me with school, never even checked in when I was struggling? I decided to push a little further. Me. I just find it funny how you guys never reached out until you needed money. Not even a birthday message, nothing. But now I'm suddenly important? And that's when my dad, who hadn't spoken to me in years, jumped into the conversation. Dad, don't be dramatic. We've always cared about you. You're just being selfish right now. Selfish. Me? I was done playing nice. I decided it was time to show them exactly what being ignored felt like. Me. You're right. Maybe I am being selfish, just like you were when I needed you. Good luck figuring things out. I'm sure Eric will take care of you. Then I blocked them. But I wasn't done yet. That night I got curious. If my parents were this desperate for money, just how bad were things? So I did a little digging. Turns out Eric's failed business had completely tanked my parents financially. They had co-signed on multiple loans for him, loans he never paid back. Their house was at risk, their credit was destroyed, and Eric? He was living in their basement, still acting like nothing was wrong. And here's the kicker. They had already borrowed money from other family members. They weren't just asking me for help, they were asking everyone. At that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to deny them money. I was going to make sure no one else gave them money either. Over the next few days, I reached out to some extended family, relatives I hadn't spoken to in a while but who had always been nice to me. I casually brought up the situation. Me. Hey, random question. Have my parents asked you for money? Every single person I asked? They had. My parents had been running a full-blown family-wide scam, playing the victim, trying to guilt-trip as many relatives as possible into giving them cash. Well, that ended now. I told them the truth. I told them how my parents had ignored me for years, how they had let me struggle while spoiling Eric rotten, how they only reached out when they needed money. And you know what? It worked. Slowly, family members started cutting them off. I didn't tell my parents what I was doing. I just sat back and watched as their lifeline dried up. A week later, my mom sent me one last message. Mom, I don't know what you told everyone, but now no one is helping us. We're struggling, and it's because of you. I hope you're happy. For the first time in my life, I was. I didn't respond. I just blocked her number. Let them struggle. Let them see what it feels like to be abandoned when they need help the most. They made their choice years ago. Now I was making mine. After blocking my parents, I expected some peace and quiet. Maybe they'd finally get the message and leave me alone. I was wrong. A few days later, I got a message from an unknown number. You seriously ruined our lives. You've always been an ungrateful, selfish brat. You think you're better than us just because you have money now? You owe us. We're your parents. It didn't take a genius to figure out who it was. I didn't respond. But they didn't stop. The messages kept coming. Some guilt-trippy, some outright nasty. Calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Even my brother reached out, sending a pathetic, "Hey, can we talk?" message like we were old friends. That's when I decided I needed to take this a step further. Because they still didn't get it. They still thought they had some kind of hold over me. So I did something I knew would send them over the edge. I posted on social media. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. I simply wrote, "Crazy how some people only remember you exist when they need money. Spent years ignoring you, never checked in once, but suddenly you're family when they're broke. Wild." Within minutes, I got a flurry of reactions. Messages from old friends, distant relatives, people who knew exactly who I was talking about. Some of my aunts and uncles even commented things like, "Yep, we got the same sob story from them too." And the best part? It spread. Turns out my parents had been running their little guilt trip scam on even more people than I had originally thought. Old family friends, distant cousins, former neighbors, people I barely even remembered, had all been hit up for money. And now, everyone was talking about it. The fallout. The next time my parents tried reaching out to anyone, radio silence. No one was picking up their calls. No one was buying their sob stories. They were completely cut off. And when the money stopped flowing, that's when things got really bad. Eric, the golden child, was forced to get a job. My parents? They had to sell their house, the same house they had lived in for decades, the house where they had treated me like a ghost while worshiping my brother. They were desperate. I heard through the grapevine that they tried moving in with an aunt, who promptly kicked them out after 2 weeks of their entitled behavior. Now, they were renting a tiny apartment in a bad part of town. I wish I could say I felt bad, that some part of me wanted to reach out and make amends. But I didn't, Because this wasn't just about money. This was about years of neglect, years of being treated like I didn't matter, years of struggling on my own while they acted like I didn't exist. They made their choice a long time ago. Now they were living with the consequences. And me? For the first time in my life, I was free. After everything went down, I felt light. Like a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying had finally been lifted. For years, I had held on to this quiet, unspoken pain, the kind that settles in when you spend your whole life wondering why you weren't enough, why the people who were supposed to love you chose to ignore you. But now, I didn't care anymore. I had won, not just in a petty, haha, they got what they deserved kind of way, but in a real, meaningful way. I had built a life for myself, a life without them. And the best part? They had no power over me anymore. A few months later, I heard through a cousin that my parents were still struggling. My mom had apparently started posting sad, passive-aggressive updates online. Stuff like, "It's so heartbreaking when your own child turns their back on you after everything you've done for them." I almost laughed. Everything they'd done for me? What, ignoring me? Treating me like I was nothing? Letting me struggle while they handed my brother everything? I thought about responding. I thought about setting the record straight. But then I realized I didn't need to, because no one believed them anymore. People knew the truth now. My parents had burned every bridge they had. No one was falling for their sob stories anymore. And Eric? He was struggling too. Turns out having everything handed to you your whole life doesn't prepare you for the real world. Without my parents funding his lifestyle, he had to actually work to survive. And guess what? He hated it. I heard he lost his first job within a month because he didn't like being told what to do. He bounced between a few other jobs, never lasting long, always looking for a shortcut. But there weren't any left. No one was there to bail him out this time. One last attempt. I thought I was done with my parents. I really did. But then, one day I got a letter in the mail, from my mom. I debated throwing it away without reading it. But curiosity got the better of me. It was long. A full, handwritten letter, and for the first time in my life, it almost sounded genuine. She didn't ask for money. She didn't make excuses. She just wrote about how hard things had been, how they had lost everything, how she never expected things to turn out this way. She wrote about me, too, how she regretted not being a better mother, how she wished she could go back and do things differently. And then, at the end, she wrote, "I don't expect you to forgive us. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry." And for the first time, I actually felt something other than anger. Not forgiveness, not sympathy, just peace. Because I had won. Not in a revenge kind of way, but in the sense that I had broken free from them. Their choices had consequences. And whether my mom meant her apology or not, it didn't change the fact that I didn't need them anymore. So, I didn't respond, I didn't reach out, I just let it go. Because for the first time in my life, I was finally free.